Hi everyone, this is Daniel from Arconis, and I have the pleasure to record this virtual talk for the USR 2024 conference leading up to the Salzburg event about the openstatsguide, and these will be minimum viable good practices for high quality statistical software packages. I present this here as on behalf of the openstatsguide.org working group, and you will hear more about that in a second. So I will give a quick introduction, then look at the OpenStats guide a bit more in detail before asking you to please have a look at it and please give us feedback. Quick introduction. Of course, R has been very successful over the last 2 decades. Here we just have one of the ways to look at it via the Stack Overflow questions, the proportion that comes for R. We see a steady increase over the last 15 years or so. And of course, it's mainly due to the ease of creating and sharing our packages with the community. And of course, the comprehensive R archive network, CRAN, has been a huge success enabling all this. Of course, increasingly other places like GitHub become other more lightweight ways to share our packages as well. And the question is a little bit, how can we guide all of those package developers to improve their skills and make even better quality packages for the others to use? And there are a lot of courses available online and at institutions, lectures at universities. There are workshops, also OpenStatsware offered a couple of workshops already. There are many books, offline and online, printed and as websites available. There's also peer review. To mention here, our OpenSci doing a great job at peer reviewing packages, but also Journal of Statistical Software and other venues. So those are potential ways to guide developers. And OpenStatsware has been thinking about another one. So quick about OpenStatsware, we are a scientific working group associated both with the American Statistical Association Biopharmaceutical Section, but also the European Federation of Statisticians in the Pharmaceutical Industry. But of course, many of the concepts apply to any other industry and academia as well. And our goals are to engineer selected R packages to fill in gaps in the landscape, and also promote the corresponding software tools. Right? And we do this through publications, through conference presentations, exactly like this one, through workshops and courses. And we also want to develop good software engineering practices for engineering high quality statistical software and promote them in the broader community. And this is exactly the OpenStats guide is exactly in line with this objective. And of course, we also communicate and collaborate with many other of the R software initiatives, including via the R consortium. So what is this OpenStats guide I want to talk about today? It's a small and concise set of recommendations for package developers. It is opinionated, but aims to be based on experienced majority opinions, I would say. Focus again are developers, users who look into assessing existing packages. They might find complementary validation frameworks very valuable, for example, from the R Validation Hub. And we're primarily looking here at statistical packages, so not other usage of R or other programming languages. So we're not looking too much into plotting or data wrangling or APIs and the like, but more into modeling and stuff like that. And principles are very generic here, and they can be used across other functional data science languages like Python and Julia as well, not just R. And we also mentioned concrete tools as examples on the website. So let's have a quick look at the OpenStats guide. This is the website, openstatsguide.html. You will see the link at the end of the presentation as well. We have a version for this. We have a publication date. You see the mentioning this, here, this is a beta release. It's not yet visible directly on the website. So we basically want to reach out to the community at the moment and see if they have further inputs before really making this very, very public. And the scope here is mentioned. We will see that in a second as well. And then we have the recommendations, and we will go through them in details. And then you have these nice little examples here that you can then click on in the actual website when it's not linked here in the slides, and you can get the R, Python, and Julia examples how to implement certain things, certain recommendations, right? And then you have a list of references as well. That's also pretty nice, pretty helpful. Okay, so again, we want to make it concise, easy, also easy to remember. So there's basically 6 sections: documentation, vignettes, tests, functions, style, and lifecycle. And these 6 keywords you can very easily remember with this mnemonic bridge sentence. Developers value tests for software longevity. Okay, if you just remember the sentence, developers value tests for software longevity, then you can basically understand, okay, what was again the first one? Developers. D, okay, documentation. Value, okay, developers value, so vignettes, because V, right? Tests is anyway the same. For functions, software for style, longevity for life cycle. So it even has some proper connection here, even in terms of the topic. So that's the objective, easy to remember. We will start with the documentation. Of course, you know it's important for users and developers to understand everything in your package. And the point is without reading and interpreting the underlying source code, right? And we have 3 sub-recommendations for each of these topics, right? The first one here for documentation is use inline comments when you need them, right? Um, and what do you mean here? To generate the corresponding documentation, right? So that's Roxygen 2 for R. There's the similar things for Python and Julia with doc strings. So let's make use of Roxygen 2 for our packages. Let's not write those man pages manually any longer, right? So it's kind of clear, but that's a good, important recommendation. Um, we also recommend to document internal functions in classes so that it's much easier for future developers to maintain them as well and to understand them. And here now we come to the actual code comments. Those are useful when you have ambiguous or complex pieces of internal code. But first, always optimize the code design as much as possible and give concrete variable names that are easy to understand. Then you don't need many comments, so code comments should be relatively sparse. Okay, that's documentation. Then we have vignettes. Vignettes, of course, you know them. They are documents that complement the object documentation by providing comprehensive overview from a user point of view. And of course, we're looking here at statistical packages, so we also want to emphasize the connection here to the statistical approaches and building a bridge there. And we have three recommendations here. First, pretty obvious, provide an introduction vignette, right, that opens up the package to new users, right? That really should be an entry point for getting them started, right? If they don't know anything, they dive into introduction vignette, they go through it, they know what to do next, right? Second, include deep dive vignettes, right? Go into depth on specific use cases, specific functionalities, and also underlying theory, right? Very important, describe the underlying statistic methodology and how it is implemented in the package, including algorithm, maybe pseudocode and those kind of things, because then it will be much easier for users and developers to make the bridge to the source code if they need to. Last but not least, third point, host your vignettes on a dedicated website, right? That's easy in R with package down. And that's very nice because users can read those documentation vignettes without installing the package, right? And it also simplifies citing the vignettes in other publications. Okay, so that was vignettes. Tests, next one. Tests, of course, are a fundamental safety net and development tool to ensure that your package works as expected. And that's important both during development as well as to make sure that it works on the target systems that the users then use, right? First point, write unit tests for all functions and classes in your package to ensure that these smallest building blocks really work correctly on their own. So that's the so-called white box testing. You need to expect that you need to rewrite tests for internal code when you refactor your package, even when you keep maybe your user API the same. This is okay. This is normal, but you want to make sure that those smallest building blocks really work as expected. Second point, write functional tests for all user-facing functionality. So this is not a black box testing, and these tests ensure that the user application programmer interface user API is stable when you refactor the internal code. And a third point, ensure a good coverage of your code with your tests as a final check, but only after making sure you have those unit and functional tests on all levels of the code at sufficient granularity. Okay, that was tests. Now we come to functions. Of course, there will be functions. That's not the point, but the point is how should the functions be? The first point is they should be short, maybe around less than 50 lines of code, right? For a single and well-defined purpose, and they should have few arguments, right? Don't go into 10 or 20 arguments. Keep it maybe around 4 or 5 maximum. Otherwise, bundle them together in objects. Look that you have low cyclomatic complexity. You can check that with a linter package, and simplifies also the writing of tests if they are short, these functions, and you can maintain them much more easily. Second point is, and that's a little bit new for many R users or developers maybe, try to use type hints. There's no types in R, but in Julia, for example, there are. So in R, it's type hints to explain to the user which argument of the function expects which type of input, right? So that can be written in normal text just after the argument that you want to describe, after the parameter of the function you want to describe, or you can put it into parentheses. There's a nice package, Roxy types, just new on cron, that makes this much easier. And the last point is you want to enforce those types and other expected properties of function arguments with assertions. And these assertions are important because they give an early and readable error message to the user instead of failing somewhere downstream in a much less explicable way, right? So there's checkmate package for this, but also assert that package, and this makes your package much more robust. Style is important, should be consistent and readable, and also language idiomatic, and enforced by style checks. So first point here is use language idiomatic code. So do it the way other R developers would do it and not some kind of special way that only you understand. And also follow the clean code rules. So that means using descriptive and meaningful names, prefer simple over complex code, avoid duplication of code, right? There's this famous don't repeat yourself, the STRI principle, don't repeat yourself. Regularly refactor code. Of course, there might be exceptions when needed, right? So this is not a black and white thing. Use a formatting tool to automatically implement a consistent and readable code format. So in R, that's the styler package. And use a style checking tool to enforce a consistent and readable code file. So that's the lint_r package in R. Last but not least, lifecycle management is important, right? Packages live much longer than you might initially expect, especially when you publish them. And keep the dependencies list short and use a central code repository. So the first point, reduce dependencies to simplify maintenance of your own package, right? Only depend on other packages that you trust and deem stable enough for the purpose in order to avoid reinventing the wheel, right? And typically if you just need a single, very simple function from another package, maybe it's worth to just write it yourself instead of importing the other package. Second point, give clear information to users about changes in your package API while maintaining the changelog. So that's the news.mbd file in R. And first, you should deprecate functionality before removing it. So for this, there's the lifecycle package, but also the new package called Fledge, FLEDGE, and those can be very useful to manage this. Last point, also pretty obvious, use a central repository for version control, collecting and resolving issues and managing releases, right? This will often be github.com, can be gitlab.com. There might be other places for such kind of Git, typically Git repositories. And also what is very nice is to have a contributing guide in this repository so that new developers who want to help, they know what to do and how to write the pull requests and so on. So that's what we have: the documentation, vignettes, tests, functions, style, lifecycle, and you can remember this very easily with the simple sentence developers value tests for software longevity. Quick outlook at the end. How do we maintain this? We will maintain this by openstatsguide.org, by the working group, and we're considering a regular review, maybe every half to 1 year. And of course, we will modify recommendations as good practices change and also link to new tools as they become available. A couple of things still on our to-do list. Would be nice to be able to switch between versions of the OpenStats guide. We also want to make it easy to cite OpenStats guide, maybe getting a DOI. We could also further optimize the way the tool examples are shown. If you have some HTML tricks in your toolbox, let us know. And there's also some work ongoing for a separate Shiny app development guide. So now it's your turn. I'm very curious, is this useful? What is missing maybe? What is maybe not needed? You will be able to find these slides at rconus.github.io/openstatsguide. Use our 2024. The OpenStats guide is available at openstatsguide.org/guide.html, and I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. And I would be very, very happy if people reach out to me or to us, openstatsguide.org, to give feedback. And just a quick note on this one. So when you are on the actual website, looks like this. And you, again, just to show that this actually works, so you can look at these R, Python, and Julia examples. For some of the recommendations, we provide those direct links, right? And you can click on the things here, package down, for example. That's I think pretty useful. You have the references with all the links there. Very, very good material here. And then you can also directly sign in with GitHub here, and leave a comment here directly on the page. That's also very easy to do. So I would be very happy to receive feedback. Okay, and that's it. Thanks for listening, and looking forward to seeing you at the conference maybe, and let's stay in touch. Bye bye.